Hi, it's Anna here. Welcome back to my channel, the best place for parents or educators who want to learn and evolve with their children. Today, I will be discussing Raising a Secure Child, written by 3 psychotherapists who founded a well-known framework called the Circle of Security. And you may be familiar with this framework as it's quite well known and has been taught all over the world in parenting workshops. I first heard of it when I went to sleep school when I was having a lot of issues with my second child and sleeping. The aim of this book is to actually make this framework accessible to anyone so that you don't have to attend a parenting workshop if you can't or if you don't want to. It's filled with stories and practical examples so that it's a lot easier to digest the information and a lot easier to also see how you would put it into practice. It's basically a roadmap on how to raise emotionally secure children. What I like most about this book is that they emphasize throughout the book that there is no such thing as a perfect parent, which I think is so important because when you read parenting books with the wrong mindset, it's easy to see how you might think that if only you do everything right, you will succeed as a parent. As the authors say, if your goal is to do everything right, you actually risk missing what your child needs for lifelong emotional security. What I also really like about this book is that there is a big section that discusses how our own upbringing can affect our parenting style in the present, which I think is so important because, as you may have realized by now, it's simply not enough to just apply knowledge or apply a framework without addressing your own limitations. When I did this book summary, Brené Brown put it so well. We simply cannot give what we do not have. So reflection is a huge part of the parenting puzzle. First, I will discuss why secure attachment matters so much. Then I will deep dive into the actual Circle of Security framework. And then we will discuss where you might be struggling on the circle and why. So let's start with why secure attachment matters so much. You may be familiar with the concept of secure attachment, which is basically children needing to rely on at least one caregiver to meet their physical and emotional needs. The way I like to describe it is that my children need to know without a doubt that I have their back no matter what. Decades of research have actually shown that it leads to the best outcome for children in physical, emotional, and relational health. First, that's how they develop their sense of self, a strong identity, and how they build their self-confidence. By regulating their emotions with their trusted caregiver, they also learn the skill of emotion regulation. And this process of regulating their emotions with a trusted caregiver, called co-regulation, is also how they learn that emotions are natural, acceptable, and shareable. And that's how you build true self-esteem, not by praise and boosting their ego, but by true acceptance, which then means that they feel excited and free to explore the world and learn, which in turn builds resilience. And the quality of this connection is how they build social competence, intimacy, mutual support, empathy, and getting along in all the domains of life. And therefore, it will affect which relationships they actually choose to be in the future. So as you can see, the relationship that we have with our children is so important for their future. And here is the paradox. In order to raise autonomous and independent children, we need to build trust, not control. Our children need to know that they can come back to us whenever they need, and that we will be there for them with open arms. I think there is this big misunderstanding that when you become independent, when you become an adult, you shouldn't be relying on other people. But that's actually not the case. All human beings need another person to regulate their emotions. This process of co-regulation doesn't go anywhere after childhood. It follows you throughout your life. And this is why it can be so therapeutic to be discussing the problems that you have in your life, whether it's at work or in your life, with a loved one. But we shouldn't fall into the trap of perfection, because if we are just focusing on being the perfect parent, it can actually affect secure attachment because we aren't fully present with our kids. So the authors tell us that we should be striving for good enough parenting. Balance is absolutely key. And this brings us to the framework that the authors have put together so that parents can fully understand their role. The purpose of this Circle of Security is to provide parents with a quick and accurate way to observe and understand our children's needs at any given moment. Let's take a look. This framework encompasses all 3 primal instincts that we have developed as a species. The first one is called caregiving. It's the instinct that the parent has to provide care for their child and bond with them. And it's represented here on the top left-hand side with secure base, which is you, the parent. The second instinct is called exploration. And it's the instinct that children have to explore the world and learn new things. And this is a child here running to explore on the top of the circle. And children will only feel the urge to explore when they have this secure base. So it's crucial as parents that we don't become helicopter parents and actually let our child explore while we simply watch over them. And this is what our child needs. Watch over me, delight in me, help me, enjoy with me. And the third instinct is called care seeking. And it's the instinct that our child has to stick close to someone they trust, who can comfort, protect, and help them make sense of their feelings. And you can see this at the bottom of the circle where it says safe haven. And this map has been developed for children, but all human beings need a safe haven and the freedom to explore. That's how we all thrive, whether we are a child or an adult. And the authors describe the quality of the relationship we have with our kids, those hands represented on the circle of security, as being with your child. And the way they describe it is that it isn't a technique, but a state of mind, where you are attuned, flexible, responsive, and available. Being with your child is the most natural thing in the world, and it can also be the most difficult. Because we have this instinct to protect our child, and we aren't often comfortable with negative emotions ourselves. So what ends up happening is that we often want to fix the problem, minimize it, or ignore it. But this tendency to do more is often experienced by our children as not being with. Or another thing that makes it difficult is that we have this deep-seated belief that misbehavior needs to be squashed, or our child won't turn out fine, or that they do it on purpose. So we need to work on shifting this belief so that we can see that all behavior is our child's way of communicating a need the only way they can. And it's important to note here that none of us can meet all of our children's needs all of the time. What we're looking for is balance. There will also be time when we absolutely do need to take charge and our child's needs may not be met, or they will be extremely unhappy about it, and that's okay. Our role is not to be friends with our kids, but like the authors say, to be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. So now I wanted to discuss another big part of the book, which is about why some of us parents struggle on some parts of the circle. You may have noticed this in your own parenting, but sometimes parents can really struggle with some of their children's needs around the circle. And I know it's definitely been the case for me. I've really struggled with my children screaming and tantruming. It's been a massive trigger for me that I've had to work through. And not everyone is conscious of this. The authors actually refer to this as shark music, which I thought was such a good description for it. You may be familiar with the movie Jaw, either you've watched it or you've heard of it. But there is this specific music that they use when the sharks come. And basically, this is referring to being triggered. An event is happening, your child is acting a certain way, and you are feeling this deep internal sensation, this deep uncomfortable feeling. For me, I can really feel my body tensing and the anger bubbling up. And basically, it's our body going into fight or flight mode. Your brain and body think that you are in danger based on something that happened in the past and the neural pathways that you have connected in your brain, and it's telling you to escape at all costs. And the way we usually escape at all costs is that we either scream at our children or we just shut down. And the problem with this is that our children are so wired to build connection with their trusted caregivers that when they sense that we are uncomfortable with that particular need or emotion, they will adopt coping strategies to hide their needs, which is, as you can imagine, very unhealthy. I also really like the analogy that the authors use of the rainbow. And the fact that for a rainbow to be beautiful, we need the full spectrum of colors. So if we, the parents, were not allowed to express certain emotions as children, I think it's probably the majority of us, we were essentially asked to live without that color, without that emotion. But we do need the full range of emotion to thrive, just like a rainbow. And that's the same for our kids too. And the great news is that we now have access to this attachment research so that we can take the steps to heal and fine-tune our parenting. And we should be doing this with no blame and a lot of compassion. And it's absolutely never too late to heal and develop the skills of emotion regulation in adulthood. I'm certainly a prime example that it's possible. And if this topic is of special interest to you, I highly recommend you watch this video summary that I did that goes into this exact topic about how our own upbringing is affecting our parenting in the present. And it actually explains the neuroscience behind it. So let's take a look at the different types of sharp music. If you hear sharp music when your child is on the bottom of the circle, you are most probably uncomfortable with emotional and/or physical closeness. And as a defense mechanism, you may focus mainly on your child's achievements, intelligence, or interest in activities. And typically, you may also have unrealistic expectations that are simply not developmentally appropriate for your child. In a nutshell, you may be more comfortable when your child is out there exploring the top part of the circle, and uncomfortable when your child is upset and needs comfort and your help to make sense of their emotions. If you hear sharp music when your child is on top of the circle, you are overly preoccupied by your child's emotional attachment needs. So it's the other way around. Because you are uncomfortable with emotional and/or physical separation from your child, you may come up with reasons to keep your child close and treat your child as if they're much younger than they are, or encourage them to always look to you for help. And the interesting thing is that these parents also often struggle with providing true comfort, because it's more about being focused on satisfying their own needs to be needed, without offering actual or attuned comfort. And the last one is the hands on the circle. And all parents actually struggle to be the hands on the circle all of the time. But adults who had a parent who was often absent or abusive often have a very hard time taking charge of their own child. And it usually manifests as struggles with discipline, where the parent will vacillate between being angry sometimes, absent others, and weak at other times. They basically have a really hard time showing confident and calm leadership. The authors really invite us to reflect on our own childhood and our struggles around the circle, so that we can make small steps toward becoming secure adults ourselves. And the simple process is to reflect on what emotions our own caregivers were uncomfortable with when we were children, and think about how this affects us in our parenting today. That's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave me a like and please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching and keep growing.